God, today as this session is open, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me now in honoring America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Broderick. Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Dakota.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
The chair would like to recognize Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to offer a moment of silence with darkened chambers for Vincent Lumanello, a loving and dedicated husband, father, grandfather. Mr. Lumanello served his country with pride and distinction in the United States Army during the Second World War. Mr. Lumanello and his lovely wife was also very active and huge supporters of RARA, located on High Street in our city. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Would the chair mind if I brought someone's name forward? I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers for Edna S. Cowan, the mother of Dr. Cowan from Middlesex Community College, who passed away at the age of 98 last Tuesday. And I know that Dr. Cowan, who works so closely with the city council, with the city administration, would certainly appreciate us recognizing her mother this evening. I'd also like to ask the council that we remember those that were involved in the terrible tragedy in Tucson, Arizona, and certainly pray for Congresswoman for a speedy recovery and all the other victims of that tragedy. So if we could all rise in a moment of silence and darken chamber. May they rest in peace. Thank you. First order of business will be to approve the minutes of the January 4th meeting for acceptance. Motion by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Under the city manager, communication from city manager, responses to council motions and requests. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some time ago, I made a motion at the request of certain people that were having a hard time to try to figure out the new on-street parking system, and I guess it was the first time that they were trying to use it, and they thought that it might be a good idea if we had parking executive director Chuck Carney come forward and try to make a presentation of some sort so that they could make heads and tails of this important process that they thought was a little bit confusing. And I can understand that because my mother used to get confused with the VCRs when that first came out, so I can understand that. And so I referred that to the city manager, and he, in fact, sent that to the right department. And there is a 5-minute video. It's an informative video produced by the staff and students at Lowell High School, Colleen Cregan's television studio, and I wanted to recognize the fine work because I did see it on LTC, and I also want to thank Jack Picard of the Lowell High School students and the city's MIS staff, specifically John Myers, and the parking department staff themselves for putting together that video, talking about how it really is very easy, but when you're unfamiliar with certain things, it seems a little bit mind-boggling, but it isn't. And so I know that they're going to be producing it and showing it on LTC quite regularly, and Chuck Honey is here this evening. I wanted to thank you, Mr. Manager, for putting that together, as well as everybody that I mentioned. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Manager.
I wasn't sure where we had that here, but we actually have it here tonight to show to people if...
Oh, okay. I don't think we need a suspension because it's actually under responses from the city manager. So if this is the appropriate time, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let the manager know I'm very happy, and I think the neighborhood is very happy about the building at the corner of Thorndike and Highland Street. They're finally rebuilding the roof and bringing the building back to its natural beauty. I'm happy about that. And I did receive a report on the police garage, and I'm not going to belabor the issue, Mr. Manager. We have spent $72,000 so far. Upgrades to the hot water heaters, the lifts, the windows, removal of bathroom, blocking in one garage bay, and so forth and so on. And excavating a ramp or something into the basement, and what does that entail?
We're looking at that. We're looking at that as well as the raising of the roof right now, getting cost estimates and doing all that. As I've indicated in several locations now, it would have been nice if we had been able to have the building, completed, ready to move in when we ready to go when we moved in. But unfortunately, we were really under the gun to get out of the arena site. Which, by the way, we received that $250,000 today. So
good.
that was due to us. So, but we were that money was being jeopardized if we stayed at that site too long. So, we paid $449,000 for it. We have spent $72,000, which includes the move, which we would have had to pay no matter where we went. We're now looking at the cost effectiveness of digging out and creating another entrance into the basement, so there's a drive-in entrance there, getting the cost estimates for that, as well as the roof, and determining what our priorities are. We also have a couple heaters we need to do some work on.
Right.
I was out at the site myself again yesterday, and I think
I just missed you. I went down there about 25 past 1, and I just missed you.
Yep.
But looking at the mechanic, I just walked around just briefly, and looking at the roof, it's precast concrete
Correct.
and an immense amount of weight there, so you'd have to lift like 6 panels off
Right.
to raise the roof on 2 bays. And
Right, so we're
It's,
pricing all that out to see what makes sense. Again, it's substantially less than the other site that I know that some people thought was really a good site for us, and it just under the bidding laws, we had the legal issues, and also just from a financial standpoint. But we are working at it. We have to clean out the basement. That's another big
Right.
project that we have, and we're looking at a number of different alternatives of how to make the building the most usable possible.
I know you have quality and qualified engineers working for the city, but check out the foundation and so forth before you remove those slabs
Absolutely.
to see if they will hold that extra weight. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 communications. One is recap data from DOR, the Department of Revenue. They did, in fact, certify $1.348 million in free cash in the general fund, as well as other items. I just want to see if we could, I know we'll be having a finance subcommittee meeting, so if this communication can be submitted to the finance subcommittee, and we'll discuss it.
Motion by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Mendoza.
I think Councilman Donza did file a motion on this, so it's good to know that it, in fact, did come in, and we can use it. The other one was the snow operations, which sometimes we're always looking for ways to save money, and here is, as well as improve services, and as simple as this is, no one has ever really thought of it, and it makes a lot of sense, Mr. Manager, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but there are salt sheds in different sections of the city now, so every time a truck runs out of salt, it doesn't have to go, I mean, it could be at the opposite end of the city. I don't have to go back to the landfill where the central salt shed is, but I don't know if you want to explain this to residents, that sanding and salting would be done in a very expedited or in a much faster manner.
Right. Well, essentially that. We, right now we've had, or up until now, we've had all of our salt out at the landfill, which, as everyone knows, is really on the Chelmsford line. It's right at Drum Hill. And whenever we've been doing sanding and salting throughout the city, when they're up in Belvedere, or when they're over in Centerville or out in Pawtuckaville, it's quite a distance to get back to that site. So when the trucks ran out, when they're out up in the hills of Centerville, they have to, if they had to go all the way back, by the time they get back to that site, all the work that they've done really has been lost. There's a large fuel cost that goes with that, and obviously the time element. So this was something that, working with the DPW staff, street staff, DPW director, the determination was made that we should have satellite operations. We should have one out at the water plant out in on the boulevard. We should have one at the wastewater plant, so we hit the Pawtuckaville area as well as the Centerville area, and then we're putting one up at we put one up at Colley Stadium as well. So we have a supply of salt and sand there that we can have as our supply when we need to refill during a snowstorm. And then when the storm event is complete, we then fill those back up so that they're there for people. We also this year have, so thank you. I do think it's going to make us more efficient and much more effective, and it's going to save us some money. Also this year, we've put out for public information, we have 11 salt bins across the city for residential use, and we've put those at those are for people who have a need for salt and sand for their sidewalks or their own use. We have those out at the DPW complex on Middlesex Street, the firehouse on Old Ferry Road, the former St. John Church parking lot on White Street, the Varnum School on 6th Street, the Robinson School on Beacon Street, the Riley School on Douglas Road, Muldoon Park on Billerica Street, Riverside School on Woburn Street, the Stocklosa School on Broadway, Kerwin Park on Lawrence Street, and Olivera Park on Chambers Street. We listed these on our website. We've also sent this out in a press release, and I'm not sure if that's made it into the newspaper yet, but we're trying to get that information out to people. But thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very helpful, those salt bins, and they're in every neighborhood, so that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on responses before we show the 5-minute video? Yes, Mr. Manager.
Just as if I could, Councilor Mercer has already indicated the work that went into this by the high school staff to the students, the parking department, and the MIS department. Henry Marchand has done quite a bit of work on this as well to get this out. We were hoping to get a top-notch actor or actress to participate in this, but our efforts with Councilor Mercia were unsuccessful, and she was not willing to. We couldn't pay her the proper wages, so but we made do. So, but thank you.
The union.
Thank you.
On your travels through downtown Lowell, you may have noticed some new parking kiosks are in place. So now, parking curbside is simpler than ever. With a few steps, you can park and be on your way. Let's see how. After you've pulled into a space, make note of the space number on the post next to your vehicle. Take a quick look up and down the street. You'll spot a kiosk with a prominent "Pay Here" sign. It should be just a few spaces from you in either direction. You can pay in one of 3 ways: using coins, a credit card, or your debit card. Here's how to pay using coins. Once you're at the kiosk, remember these 4 quick steps. Step 1 on the kiosk asks that you enter the 1, 2, or 3-digit number of the space where you parked. In step 2, insert your payment simply by dropping quarters, dimes, or nickels into the coin slot. Each 25 cents you deposit gives you 15 minutes of parking. You can buy a maximum of 2 hours for $2. Now, move to the area marked Step 3 and press the green button to print your ticket. Within a few seconds, your ticket will print out in the area marked Step 4. You'll notice the ticket has the date and the time your parking will expire. Make sure to take this ticket with you. And that's all there is to it. 4 simple steps and you're on your way. If you'd like to use a credit or debit card, the 4 steps are just as quick and easy. In step 1, enter the 1, 2, or 3-digit number of the space where you've parked. Then, moving to step 2, look just below the number pad to the slot that's clearly marked credit card. Here, insert either a credit or a debit card. Make sure the striped side is down and to the right. Now, move to the section marked Step 3. The kiosk has automatically added 30 minutes of parking for 50 cents. If you need more than 30 minutes of parking, press the yellow button. Each time you press, another 30 minutes of time will be added. You can buy a maximum of 2 hours for $2. When you have the time you need, press the green button to print your ticket. Your ticket will print out in the area marked Step 4. The ticket has the date and time that your parking will expire. Take this ticket with you. And that's all there is to using Lowell's parking kiosks. We hope we've helped make your parking easier and stress-free. And please, enjoy your visit in downtown Lowell.
Very good. Good. Yeah,
Thank you. Nice job, Chuck Carney and staff. Thank you so much.
all right.
Thank you.
Do you want this check one to speak?
Okay, Chair recognizes Mr. Carney.
First of all, I want to, Mr. Mayor and City Council, want to thank you for inviting us here tonight to kind of share our video that we put a lot of work into and had a tremendous amount of help from the Lowell High students, from the Media Arts Department, Jack Bernard and Company, and our own MIS staff, to try to make something that hopefully is simple and our customers can look at on our website. And as in the note I gave you tonight for the package, we are also going to have it on Channel 10 and Channel 22. They're going to run spots on there. In your package, I've given each one of you a CD copy of that presentation. As we start to put more and more kiosks into the field, hopefully they'll be easier and easier to use. Also had tremendous help from our MIS department, Manan Fernandez and John Pendles, and just all the help we got from our internal people. Last year, it was funny, the other thing we get with the kiosk, of course, is we get a lot of data. And we're online, as I don't know if most of you know this, but it's internet-based. Last year, the time we had the kiosk, which by the way, are only installed in about a third of where our old meters used to be. And it's in the high volume areas of the downtown. But we had 400,000 people use the kiosk last year. 400,000. And very few calls into our office. As I stated also, there's an 800-line helpline on the kiosk that customers can call directly if they need any kind of help. Also, our meter maids, or enforcement officers as we call them now, we've kind of turned into ambassadors for this program. And they help our customers and anybody that's having any problems using the kiosk. So with that, I know you got a lot on the agenda tonight. Does anybody have any further questions for me on the kiosk system or what we're doing?
Yes,
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chuck, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Once you get the ticket out of the kiosk, where do you put it?
You keep it.
You keep
Yeah,
it because you don't have to put it on the dashboard or anything like that.
No, our enforcement officers have a PDA that's internet-based, Counselor, And they can look at the PDA and know exactly who's paid and how much time they have on the meter.
Okay, that's fine.
We also have that data, by the way, in the office, in the parking office, which of course is another big thing we get with our kiosks versus the old meters. We get accountability.
Sure.
We know how much money is in that kiosk. The vault that's in that kiosk when it's taken out by our technician is not opened by anybody other than the bank that we deliver it to.
There you go.
The kiosk also will tell us how much money is in the vault. So the bank takes that receipt and they look at, and they count the money, and 99% of the time it's right on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a couple of points that Chuck didn't mention, but or he alluded to a little bit. But the revenue from these the kiosks are up from the meters. We do better with the kiosks. They don't jam. So we don't have that problem. We have noticed an increase in total revenue coming off of the off-street parking or the on-street parking with these in the areas where there's kiosks for whatever reason there may be. We are trying to roll these out more. They are more, they're better for us too in terms of enforcement. As Chuck said, the meter attendants have the ability to know where spaces have are in violation from standing at one end of the street. It takes away the necessity of actually doing the walking up and down the street to do the enforcement, so they can be much more efficient and much more effective. And we are looking to roll these out at other locations in the downtown area and beyond, replacing the old meters, but also getting it to some other areas. One of the recommendations of the Jeff Speck presentation that was made was doing more on-street parking, and we're looking to try to do that in some other locations in the downtown area. It will produce more parking for us and also produce additional revenue for the city.
The other thing, that's a good point, Mr. Manager. The other thing our customers like about the kiosk is they don't have to go to a specific kiosk in the area of the parking, of where they're parking. If they forget, for example, to put the money in the kiosk and they remember their space number they parked in, they can put it in 2 streets over, as long as they remember the number. We also have customers that think they're only going to be here for an hour and they really need to go 2 hours. They can do that same kind of thing. Let's say they park on Middle Street. They put an hour in, and they get up on Merrimack Street, and they find out they're going to be longer. If they remember their space number, they can add another hour to that time. And of course, the other thing is, as the manager said, they don't break. The kiosks do not break. They're alarmed 24/7. 24 hours a day, they're tied into the early garage security operation, and they dispatch a police cruiser if there's anything going on. Which is, as I think most of you know, we used to have a real problem with meters being taken at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, being stolen, all right? We have not, thank goodness, had that problem since we put the kiosk in. I should have mentioned a couple of people. I have Melissa McNeely with me here, who's the administrator with the parking department, and Dave Levesque, who is the technical support arm for the Amano McGann system. I just want to thank them for helping us as well put this together.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Councilor Dakota. I also have a question, but I'll let Councilor Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have a comment. I want to thank you for the video. It was very well done. And one of my businesses is right in front of one of the parking meters, and people stand there for minutes at a time trying to figure out how to get their money to produce a ticket for them. So I appreciate that. And I don't know if the video can be made available on one of the city websites. That would be great. And also perhaps updating the instructions on the kiosks themselves. Sometimes that part is confusing. And the phone number is a little small. And so maybe you get more phone calls if the number was a little more visible. But the video is very well made. I appreciate that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Dakota. I just have one quick question, Mr. Carney. Is the number of the space on the ticket? If I get my ticket, will my space be on that? So if I forget, I can look at my
Yes.
ticket if
Yes,
I'm on
it is.
Merrimack. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
I just add anecdotally my experience. I mean, one of the things you try to do with the metered spaces is to keep it for in and out. People that have, running into the bank, 15 minutes running into Councilor Dakota's store, perhaps spending a little bit longer there. But, you know, the in and out travel and people that are going to be there all morning, maybe you try to encourage them to use a garage. And that's certainly been my experience. You know, if I'm driving through the downtown, I want to stop somewhere quickly, there's more often than not, a space is available. So I think that's helping to create some turnover, and at least, you know, that's been my experience anyway, and hopefully others feel the same way. Mr. Bakey was telling me that ideally you want to have one out of at least every 10 spaces open at any time, so that people do feel like if they come downtown, they can find a place to park. And that's been my experience, at least on the main streets, Merrimack and Middle and Central.
Thank you. Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question, Chuck. 400,000 people use the kiosks. How much money did that generate? You know?
It's really,
Ballpark, you know, not
it's
a-
hard to tell because it's only a third of our actual beaters that we have out there, Counselor, but it's probably in the vicinity of $500,000.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else on this issue or under response from the city manager? Thank you, Mr. Carney. Thank you very much for being here. Motion by Councilor Dakota, seconded by Councilor Mercia, that we accept the communications and place on file. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. It's being 7:05. It's time for our public hearing this evening. But before we get on to the public hearing, I'd just like to recognize we have some Boy Scouts in the audience this evening. So thank you very much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the meeting. Thank you for being here. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled Zoning by extending existing NB zoning district to include 301 Chelmsford Street in Lowell. Public hearing is now open for those wishing to speak in favor. Chair recognizes Attorney Eliades.
Good evening, Mayor Milanazzo, members of the City Council, Manager Lynch, and everybody else out in television land, citizenry. Happy New Year to all of you. My name is George Eliades Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the petitioner. I'm actually pinch hitting for Attorney Victor Forsley tonight, who's suffering down in Naples, Florida in the sun, and who wanted me to wish you all good luck with the storm tonight when he heard about it. That's typically Victor. But down to business. My clients own a piece of property at 301 Chelmsford Street in the Lincoln Square neighborhood, across from the Lincoln School and the ball field there. And they have plans to improve the entire lot and neighborhood there by building a brand-new building with, that will house a brand-new convenience store for the neighborhood. They currently, the property on Chelmsford Street, and this gentleman who's drawn the plans, the property on Chelmsford Street is currently zoned, obviously, for neighborhood business, and all of Chelmsford Street is zoned for neighborhood business. The property that we're here this evening for is kind of a strange little parcel, which is outlined mostly in green back here. This is Chelmsford Street there. This is where the proposed new convenience store will go. I'm trying to, let me see if I can get this up a little higher for all to see. Chelmsford Street, proposed new convenience store, and the lot, which is about 3,700 square feet that we're talking about tonight for rezoning. That lot is currently zoned as single family. I have no idea why, because I'm sure if you've gone by there and looked at it, I don't know. First of all, it doesn't meet any dimensional requirement to build a single family. It has no direct access to Chelmsford Street, and it is part of the property that my clients own on Chelmsford Street. I'm sure you probably You've probably all taken a look at it, but in any event, if you recall, this once housed a whole series of garages that were rented for one reason or another. My clients have taken it down as part of their plans to build a new building. So the lot itself is 3,694 square feet. It has no access, as I said, to the street. It's not large enough to build a house on. And despite that fact, it's still zoned single-family residential. So because of that, the land is otherwise basically useless. The next thing is that because of the topography and the location, and if you've been out there and seen it, it sort of goes uphill and then finally gets to a point where there are walls that go up to the houses to the rear of that on Liberty and Hutchinson Street that are way up high above it and look down into what is almost like a pit. But it basically is a piece of property that needs to, I do have some other pictures, but it's a piece of property that's just sitting there useless. That section, this section, by the way, once also housed garages long before this that were taken down. It was never used for anything other than a series of small garages that were rented out commercially on that property. We're here tonight to ask you to place the correct zoning on this because leaving it the way it is there is making it a useless piece of property. It's making it of little value, certainly no assessing value or whatever, whereas for purposes of my client's plans to build his new convenience store for the neighborhood, it will be additional parking that will be available. The new convenience store that he's intending to build would be a beautiful new asset to the city and to the neighborhood. It would provide convenience and service and additional amenities to the neighborhood. This is the proposed store that the gentleman is showing you now. It would fit in perfectly with the adjacent neighborhood businesses. I mean, as you can see, anyone who knows Chelmsford Street and that area, the entire area is a commercial area, and this just falls into place with it. It would certainly not be detrimental to the neighborhood in any way, shape, or manner. My client intends to clean it up, fix it, pave it, put trees and bushes and beautify it so that it's part of the whole thing. It will actually become a new amenity for the whole area itself and for the neighborhood. And last but not least, in assisting the project to be built, it would certainly add substantially more new needed tax revenue for the city. And I think we all know how important that is. So, in fact, in all, it would be a true win-win-win as far as I'm concerned. Finally, I'd like to point out to the council the following. Number one, the planning board heard this application. There was no opposition whatsoever. It passed unanimously 5-0, and the planning board said, and I quote, "The change is aligned with the interests and goals of the neighborhood business district." And I'm sure you've seen that in the report that comes to you from the planning board. Secondly, the extension of the neighborhood business zone into this small piece of property conforms with the desires and interests of the City of Lowell Master Plan. The City of Lowell Master Plan says we should be enhancing neighborhoods and helping to build new neighborhoods and find new areas, and then my client intends to invest literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in this project, building the new project. Thirdly, the city solicitor's office has reviewed the petition and approved it as to form. I know that Chris doesn't render opinions on the actual zoning aspect itself, but in every other respect, it meets the requirements of the law. And as she indicates, it's a natural, quote, a natural extension of the existing neighborhood business zone. And finally, I'll add my own opinion as an attorney who's looked these matters over, and I will say to you that what in essence we have here by way of the property and the criteria that our courts and our laws have looked at, this meets all of those criteria with regard to extending the zoning to that law. So I think it's fair to say that if you look at the lot itself, if you've been out there and seen the lot, and I'm sure you have, in its relationship to the neighborhood, it really has no other logical use, no other logical use than part of this commercial endeavor. Can't be built on for a house. You wouldn't want to build a house on it at that point. And so I would ask you, finally, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this matter to you, and I would ask you respectfully to grant my client's petition to change the zoning. And I'm here, my client is here. Where is he? Back there. And his engineer, architect is here with me as well, and we're ready and willing to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
We'll entertain questions after the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Thank you, Attorney Eliades.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Lowell City Council, Mr. Manager, ladies and gentlemen, for the record, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. And having lived in that area for 20 years, I'm very familiar with that piece of property. And I support this project immensely. I urge that the Lowell City Council vote unanimously on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition, name and address, please.
My name is Herendino De Silva. I reside at 28 Liberty Street, Lowell, Mass. And my property faces this property it's my backyard faces it. And I've been there for 30 years. And when I bought the house, my power was always going off because they were working off the garages. I was paying for the power all the time for those garages, which I didn't know. Okay, that's a different story. But now they're trying to build something back there, which now they have machines over there for air and vacuum cleaners. Those things go day and night, and everybody goes back there. There's a fence. It's like a public urinator at night. They go get gas. They go back at the fence and urinate. And everybody comes, gets gas. They go to the dumpster. I called today, and I called Friday about the dumpster. Somebody finally went over there and picked up some off the floor. And my backyard faces there. If they make anything back there, I won't be able to see the street anymore. I've been there for 30 years. And I have a map here of the property. That little piece there, now they were trying to change the coding zone. I never knew about the zoning until I watched a rerun on TV. And I saw it on TV. That's how I came to this meeting. I thought by law in the past, when they tried to did it before, I always got a notice to a little postcard. I didn't receive anything. I got some neighbors here came too. They never received anything. How come we were never notified that there was going to be a zoning change? That's why come they said nobody complained about the zoning? Because I didn't know about it.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, again, I can certainly ask the solicitor.
And, excuse me, in back of here, on the map, I got a map of the property. There's a right-of-way here. It meets my property to there. If they block that off, if I ever want to go through a property, I can't because they're going to block it off.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name's Bob Rooney, and I live at 3638 Liberty Street. We're having the same problem. The problem was with the garages, the roofs. We used to watch them get down there, smoke pot, urinate all over the place. Now the dumpsters they put there, they're emptying them at 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean, you know, for crying out loud, it's terrible. Now they want to build a building. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
What is it? A single, I hope.
There's a rendering, Mr. Rooney, right next to you there.
Will we be able to see the street from there? I like to watch the ball game. Well, that's my, you know.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? That portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. See, that's what I don't understand about government. I know there's different rules, there's different laws. I think there should be a universal law that states no matter where you are, whether it's the zoning board or the planning board, wherever you're discussing an issue such as this, abutters should have been notified right off the bat. Now, I know some circumstances say that they're just making a proposal, there's no need to, you don't have to address abutters or notify abutters. I think right off the bat, law should be changed to say, we're going to talk about this issue at XYZ Street, and before we even do that, we're going to notify all those abutters. So this could have taken place down in the planning department so that everybody would have been on the same page sitting there to say, what is your concern? Or what is your concern? But no, we met up here to just change the zoning, that's all. We're not stating that we want this approved, for this project approved. Our main goal is to extend the zoning NB zone, Neighborhood Business District Zone. That's all our function is. But it's troubling to hear people that are abutters come forward and say, well, you said, Attorney Eliades, nobody objected. Of course nobody objected. None of these people were there. And technically by law, they didn't probably have to be notified. So I'm not saying you did something sneakily. You absolutely didn't. But I am frustrated as an official that see these things, that laws should be changed, that they should have met downstairs so that it would have been easier, that you would have addressed their problem. I personally feel that if this development goes up, it'll add to the tax base, it'll be good for the neighborhood, it'll improve it. Right off the bat, those garages coming down was a delight to see them down. They were dilapidated, they were an eyesore. I'm concerned about parking now. If I go to Queen Pizza, will I be able to park in there if this development is there? Is there an egress or an easement that is affecting these people? These are all questions before I can make a determination that they should have been aware of, that everybody should have been on the... I think this is a wonderful project. I think these people, that they don't know that, but they have a right to be heard with their concerns. I don't think you'll ever see anybody urinating behind this facility once. I know that. I know that they want to see the ball game in the park across the street at the Lincoln School there. But this should have all been hashed out somewhat before so that we're not troubled by saying, yeah, we'll extend this zone to the neighborhood business district and yet not care about their concerns. I don't want that portrayed here. Do you hear what I'm saying? So I almost want to say, delay this, take it in another room, or come back at the end of this meeting and see if you can appease these people. They have a legitimate concern.
May I respond?
Mr. Eliades.
I agree with you. First of all, you're absolutely right. We had nothing to do with the method of notice, and we complied with the law in every way.
I know that.
It's maybe, I agree with you, a fallacy in the law and should be corrected so that people have better notice.
Right.
Secondly, and most importantly, this is not to approve this project, my client's project about the convenience store tonight. The the planning board took up only the matter of the zoning change. My client still has to go back to the planning board for site plan review and go over all of the plans. The DPD will get to see them all again, and then, by law, everybody in the neighborhood will get a notice, certified mail, that the planning board is holding a hearing about this, and they'll have the full opportunity to view their opinions about and voice their opinions about the building, the size of the building, the location of the building, and all of those things. So they're not tonight, by extending the zoning, and by the way, secondly, we're not building, and I want to assure these folks of that, we're not building any building on this property back there. We're just making that area available to the commercial property to park, so that there will be more parking in the area. And yes, my client coincidentally does own the apartment building beside it, so this will help to provide more parking there. Thirdly, and I haven't done a title examination on it, but I can assure the gentleman that if he has any rights, and I understand there is a right of way from the street into that lot there, that an easement that he has the right to, he's guaranteed that that right will be preserved, because by law, we can't build on someone else's easement rights. So he's never going to lose that. So I would have liked to have been able to explain all of this to the gentleman and these two families beforehand, but the way the system is, Counselor, it just doesn't work that way. But again, I assure you, and I assure all of the members of the council, and I'm sure the city solicitor can confirm this, as can the assistant city manager, nothing will get done before it goes to first to the planning board and probably the zoning board of appeals, because who knows what other requirements they may need to get. So there'll be at least one and maybe two public hearings where these folks will get certified mail notices in advance.
Yes, and you explained it very well, but because the law is such that it is, doesn't make it right.
I agree.
Does not make it right.
I agree.
And I think that, I think we can vote on this, but I don't want these people to think that we're shunning them, because we're not trying to do that.
I agree, and I think we've made it clear to them that they're still going to have plenty of opportunity to be able to voice their concerns.
Their opportunity should have been first.
Well,
It's almost like someone coming into the neighborhood in the middle of the night. Nobody likes that.
Sure.
But
let me assure the council again, though, that nothing will be built on that section of land, and this is going to make the whole thing a heck of a lot nicer for them to see in their backyard.
right,
Thank
thanks.
you, Attorney Eliades. Counsel Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Attorney Eliades,
Yes, Judy?
you are the best, I must say. Could you tell the council, is this a national chain that's going to be,
These are local folks.
local
Want
folks?
to come up here? This is Johnny.
My name is Johnny K. Ruse of 179 North Street in Upton, Massachusetts.
And you're going to have a deli counter, bread, milk, and so forth? A deli counter? You're going to sell groceries?
Groceries, yeah, no deli, just a transaction counter with just convenience store, your typical convenience store.
Okay. I think Council Mercier has made a valid point. And I'd also like to say that anytime a developer builds a building such as this, it improves the neighborhood, it doesn't denounce it, and it cleans the neighborhood as well. But Attorney Eliades, I asked the gentleman, they were here last Tuesday looking for this public hearing, and we informed them it was this Tuesday. They're very sincere
I know that.
on their argument. I asked the gentleman, would you meet with Attorney Eliades and the developer to come up with a covenant to protect some of their rights and allow you to build a building? But I think they should be included in the conversation. Would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely.
Would you be willing to meet with Attorney Eliades?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anyone else? Counsel Martin and Counsel Mendonça.
Yep. I just have one question for Attorney Eliades. How long has your client owned this property? About, do you know?
Approximately about 12 years or so. 12 years.
So I mean, it sounded to me like a lot of the complaints were from the old operation with the garages and emptying dumpsters.
And I should have mentioned, we have nothing to do with the gas station. This project has nothing to do with the gas station and the air, noises, et cetera. So, but again, those are things that we can, that Councilor Caulfield and Councilor Mercy has suggested, more than glad to talk to these folks about and try to help out.
How long the garage has been down?
How long have you had the garage?
I want to say in April of this year. since April of this year.
All right, that's all I had, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Mendonça?
Yeah, I am concerned, as Councilor Mercer was, that the neighbors weren't notified whether they needed to be or not. I don't know. But it would seem to me that a change of this magnitude, they should be, and we should probably take that up as a change in process if it needs to be done, so that when zoning is changing, that the abutters of that area are notified of such. And from the description, it seems to me like it would be an improvement. But I would consider delaying this to give maybe a week to have them work with the neighbors to see if they can convince them that this would in fact be an improvement to that lot, that it would be cleaned up. I mean, some of the things they complained about, the abutting neighbors, was that dumpster and how that area has been taken care of. Obviously, it's been the responsibility of the proponent of this change, and so there's some responsibility there. So, I mean, if my colleagues would, I'd like to vote to delay, a motion to delay the vote for at least a week.
Motion to delay by Councilor Mendonça.
And I'll
seconded by
second it
Councilor
because,
Mercia.
and I'm not doing it to hurt anybody, but the fact remains that we had the public hearing. We can put it on the agenda next week. You can come up and let us know what took place over the week, and let us know, and we'll vote on it.
I have no problem at all with that,
think that's
Councilor.
only fair.
Anyone who knows me and
Yes, I
knows
know
my
you,
history
John.
with boards and process in the city knows
That's right.
that I'm always willing to discuss these matters and try to help the folks in the neighborhoods.
That's great. Thank you.
I was just informed by the clerk that the motion, Councilor Mendonça, should be to continue
Okay.
this issue.
Okay.
Seconded by Councilor
Right.
Mercia. Councilor Caulfield on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the motion, yes. Attorney Elides has already agreed to meet with the neighbors and come up with something that everyone can be happy with and so forth. And I think the development's going to be good for the neighborhood, but we also have to be concerned about
Absolutely.
those people, the abutters. And
Absolutely.
I certainly support the issue being continued. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Anyone else on the motion? Roll call.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick, Councilor Caulfield,
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you all very much, and once again, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Moving back to the regular agenda, the next item under communication. From the city manager, we have the appointments or the reappointments to the Lowell Telecommunication Board of Directors. This is just to accept the communication and I believe place on file, but the names are as follows. Police Department, Paul Cochran. Neighborhood Services, Mike Damaris. Case Cool, LZ Nunn. The Library, Victoria Woodley. The Fire Department, Dennis Barabalt replaces Deputy Chief Lemire. And the Office of the City Manager, Donna McIntosh. Accept the communication placed on file by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Dakota. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know LTC has a new chairman of the chairman, Mimi Parsegian, who asked actually the manager and asked me to reaffirm who our appointments are. I see the manager's done that, and I actually declined on behalf of the council to do that. I think the council voted its appointments for a 2-year term in 2009, and those terms expire, I believe, in December of this year. And folks at LTC are okay with that. They understand most of our appointments, not all of them, have been active contributors to the board, and some may or may not seek reappointment, but for those that are interested and want to be appointed by the council to the LTC board, I think the process in the past has been to suggest to the cable TV subcommittee, of which I'm a chair, to be appointed, and we'll bring that forward in December when these terms expire. So there's usually not a whole lot of competition for these slots. We're looking for people to volunteer, so that if people are interested in serving on the board, that's a potential avenue, but it's approximately a year away.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Martin. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the communication placed on file signify by saying aye. Opposed is vote. Next item, we have a communication from the city manager addressed to the city clerk. Dear Mr. Johnson, please find attached an application for constableship for the current term beginning on January 4th, 2011 and terminating January 7th, 2014, 14th in the city of Lowell with my signature as submitted to me by Raymond Cody, 145 Winthrop Avenue, Harold Morang, 148 Raven Road, Manuel Barros, 19 Newbury Street, and Samuel Sock, 21 Smith Avenue. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Bernard F. Flynn, City Manager. Any discussion, motion?
Move approval.
Move approval by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Dakota. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick, Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott,
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Next item, communication from the city manager. Dear Mr. Mayor and members of the city council, pursuant to the authority specified under the code of the city of Lowell, section 39-1, it is with pleasure that I am reappointing Sion Soon of 117 Methuen Street, first floor, Lowell, to a new term expiring December 31st, 2014, or until such time thereafter as a successor is appointed and qualified. This is for Library Board of Trustees. Confirmation by the city council is required for this reappointment and is hereby requested. I would be happy to answer any inquiries you may have concerning this appointment. Very truly yours, Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. What's the wish of the council? Motion to approve by Councilor Mendoza, seconded by Councilor Dakota. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick, Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Present.
Councilor Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 present, 1 absent.
Next item, in city council vote authorizing the city manager to execute an access license agreement to Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid regarding property at 1 and 9 Cayenne Street, Lowell, for an oil hazardous waste cleanup. Whereas the city of Lowell owns property at 1 Cayenne Street and 9 Cayenne Street, Lowell, whereas Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid has requested permission to enter upon property of the city of Lowell at 1 and 9 Cayenne Street in order to conduct environmental activities and remedial work on said city of Lowell property in accordance with applicable law and the scope of work attached to the access license agreement, and whereas any and all such environmental activities will be performed with environmental requirements of applicable federal and Massachusetts law and related regulations, and whereas the city council must authorize the city manager to execute said consent for access to property on behalf of the city of Lowell, now therefore be it voted by a 2/3 vote of the city council of the city of Lowell as follows: that the city council of the city of Lowell hereby authorizes the city manager to execute on behalf of the city of Lowell an access license agreement to Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid relative to performing environmental cleanup activities at 1 and 9 Cayenne Street, Lowell. Said access agreement shall be in the form or substantially the form attached hereto marked A. And be it further voted that the city manager is also hereby authorized on behalf of the city of Lowell to execute any and other related documents pertaining to the subject matter of the above vote consistent therewith. Second reading by title, in city council vote authorizing the city manager to execute an access license agreement to Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid regarding property at 1 and 9 Cayenne Street, Lowell, for an oil and hazardous waste cleanup. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Caulfield, second by Council Murphy. Question, Council Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, could you just explain what exactly the action was that contributed to this contamination?
I'm going to refer this to Assistant City Manager Bakey to describe.
Thank you.
So this is going to be a game of moving people along here. I actually have the environmental engineer and the attorney representing National Grid here with me who may be able to explain it in more detail. But essentially some past practices by an ancestor company to the current electric company, or actually the current gas company, on nearby properties caused some contamination that has, we believe, spread onto the properties that the city owns. And they're going to come through this license agreement, if granted, they're taking responsibility for both assessing the extents of the contamination and then coming in and actually remediating it in compliance with the DEP. But if you're interested in more detail, I'm sure they can fill in a little more detail on exactly what the issues are there.
Thank you.
I'm Jason Naden. I represent National Grid. And if there's any specific questions, I could certainly answer them, whether they're general or technical. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do.
Councilor Murphy, do you want to repeat your question, or?
Well, just what exactly was the contributing act to the contamination? What accounts for this?
Back in the, I'll try to keep this short. Back in the early 1980s, there was an investigation done of the One Cayenne property, determined that PCBs and other chemicals had come through a gentleman who had accepted transformers and other types of PCB-containing properties, and during his normal course of business, those had been released. At the point that the Environmental Protection Agency said that you could no longer take transformers and other PCB-containing apparatus and recycle them without a specific, something known as the EPA identification number. At that point, the gentleman who owned the property at the time decided that he would cease operations. There was an environmental investigation that was done, and as a matter of course, and different types of liability statutes, both federal and state, companies that had given, whether it was, obviously it was appropriately, it was a business that he was running, but due to the operation that those companies gave to him to recycle the transformers and the releases of PCBs through his operations may have occurred. At that point, the company that I represent, which in this case was Mass Electric, had liability as a, not as an operator or an owner, but as someone who provided the materials that eventually became found in the groundwater, in the soils of the site.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick? Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin? Councilor Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 absent.
Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The last item under the city manager's portion of the agenda, in city council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to enter into a lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell, Incorporated, 657 Middlesex Street, for property located at 679 Middlesex Street, Lowell, whereas the city of Lowell issued its request for proposals for commercial rental space in the Lower Highlands neighborhood for a community policing precinct for the Lowell Police Department for a period of 3 years, and whereas Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell is the owner of the premises at 679 Middlesex Street, Lowell, and has submitted a proposal to the city of Lowell in response to its request, and whereas the city of Lowell has accepted the proposal submitted by said Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell Incorporated, now therefore be it voted by the city council of the city of Lowell as follows: that the city manager be and is hereby authorized to enter into a lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell of 657 Middlesex Street, Lowell, for property located at 679 Middlesex Street, Lowell. Said lease agreement shall be for a term of 3 years commencing January 1st, 2011 and expiring on December 31st, 2013, subject to annual appropriation. Total payments under said lease agreement for the entire 3-year term shall not exceed $72,000, payable as follows. First year, $24,000 or $2,000 per month, $11.88 per square foot. Second year, $24,000, $2,000 per month. Third year, $24,000, $2,000 per month. Said lease agreement shall be in accordance with the form or substantially the form attached hereto. Be it further voted that the lease agreement shall contain other terms and conditions as the city manager deems to be in the best interest of the city of Lowell. If there's no objection, second reading by title. In city council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to enter into a lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell Incorporated of 657 Middlesex Street, Lowell, for property located at 679 Middlesex Street, Lowell. The wish of the council. Move approved by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Mendoza. Any discussion? Councilor Mendoza.
Well, given some of the events that have occurred recently and the subcommittee report that occurred earlier this evening, and you'll hear a report on later, this is certainly one of the community police precincts we would want to keep. And I believe in communication that the council received, it indicated that this is actually a lower lease cost than the previous one. And in that light, I think we're getting more of a bargain than we were before. The proceeds that we do pay are going to help the Lowell Boys and Girls Club. So I think it's going to be a win-win all around.
Thank you, Councilman Dante. Anyone else on the motion? Roll call.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick? Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving on, under reports, the chair recognizes Councilor Caulfield for the subcommittee report on the Public Safety Subcommittee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank my colleagues on the subcommittee, Councilor Rodney, Councilor Frankie Dakota, and you, Mr. Mayor, and the entire City Council for attending this very, very important meeting. And I also want to thank Manager Lynch and Chief LaValle. I met with both of them Friday, and I know the manager was on the phone a good amount of hours calling various federal and state officials to attend the meeting. At the meeting, in attendance was Brian Martin, representing Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas. Also, Senator Eileen Donoghue was present. State Representative Tom Golden, State Representative David Nangle, and representing State Representative Kevin Murphy was Karen Monahan. Also in attendance was the District Attorney of Middlesex County, Jerry Leone. Every councilor attended the meeting, and it lasted for an hour and a half. Superintendent of Schools, Chris Augustus Scott, was in attendance. School committee member Dave Conway, Allison LaRaba, and John Leahy. Many neighborhood leaders were present, and 4 people came to the podium to speak. That was the only time we had. It was Tanya Mullane Dixon from the Lower Highlands neighborhood, Anne-Marie Page from Centerville, David Willett from the Acre, and I must say Jim Cook came to the podium, spoke, and indicated, Mr. Mayor, that the Lowell plan will do everything humanly possible to work with Manager Lynch and the Lowell Police Department to address this issue.
Councilor Caulfield, if I could, former Councilor Ricky Young also spoke.
Oh, Ricky Young, I'm sorry, I have his name right here, Ricky Young, and I know he's probably going to speak at this report. I'm sorry. The chief put on a tremendous PowerPoint presentation, and the statistics, I'll just read some of them to you. In 2009, 2010, these are the statistics. In the Acre, there was a homicide in 2009, none in 2010. There were 35 robberies in 2009, 34 robberies in 2010. Aggravated assault was 161 in 2009. In 2010, it was 152. And I can go right down this whole list, Mr. Mayor, and it's surprising to me. In the neighborhood of Centerville, there was a homicide in both years. Robberies have increased from 37 to 42. Aggravated assault, it has increased from 145 to 159. Burglaries, 171, 193 in 2010. As the chief pointed out, the Acre, the Lower Highlands, and Centerville, and Lower Belvedere have some serious problems. And the reason we had this meeting tonight was to come together as a community and express our feelings about the city in general. It is a good city with good people, with good community leaders, with a good government that has worked tirelessly to make this city an all-American city as it's been chosen in 1999. 0.4% of the population, Mr. Mayor, is causing havoc. And the meeting tonight addressed that, and District Attorney Leone was absolutely phenomenal. And he indicated He travels throughout Middlesex County, throughout the state, and this city is definitely head and shoulders above other communities. He indicated that the sister city north of us, 38% of the students graduated from high school last year. 90% of the students graduated from Lowell High School and went on to a higher school of learning. It was an excellent, excellent meeting, and I can't thank the Lowell delegation enough, the district attorney, Brian Martin from Nikki Saunders' office, and Chief Lavelli. And everyone that was involved with this meeting, Manager Lynch, and it came together tonight, and what was brought forward was a motion by Councilor Elliott, and I did ask Senator Donahue and the state representatives, before we even filed the motion, they said, we are on board. And the motion is request the Lowell delegation schedule a meeting with Governor DeVille Patrick to discuss and create a dialogue pertaining to crime in our city. And not just our city, Mr. Mayor, in the state. And that meeting with Governor Patrick would consist of you, Mr. Mayor, or your representative, City Manager Lynch, Police Chief LaValle, the District Attorney, members of the subcommittee, or any members of the City Council, neighborhood leaders, Greg Croto from the, representing from the UTEC organization, and members of the Asian community. We cannot and will not sit back and be idle and watch a small group of people take this city down. We won't do it. We just won't do it. And I think this meeting tonight was the start of that. And everyone I spoke to, from the district attorney to the senator to the state representatives to Brian, he said this was an excellent meeting, and it's the first step of addressing this issue. I wish my colleagues on the subcommittee could weigh in a little bit and offer their views, or any members of the council weigh in their views. And Mr. Manager, I want to thank you. You were on the phones for hours Friday, and that's not an easy task, making sure everyone would make that meeting. I'm very happy with the outcome, and I'm looking forward to meeting with DeVille Patrick, the governor of our state, to sit down and discuss these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a wonderful turnout. It was a wonderful event this evening to discuss what took place and try to air out our concerns. I didn't speak at this meeting because I wanted to listen. I wanted to listen to people, but I heard former City Manager Brian Martin, and he hit the nail on the head. We can have all the meetings that we want, but if we don't have a plan in place, if we don't have a funding source, and I know through you to the city manager, and I can read your mind saying the budget, she's a stickler for the budget, she don't want to hurt the taxpayers. I don't, and I don't think any of us do, but when you propose public safety in a city, I don't think people mind paying their fair share if we have a safe city. I think that's number one, and I'm not trying to appeal to the masses. We do need more police, and I know that your efforts of $100,000 is fine, but I think it's only superficial in that we need a lot more than that. We need more police. There's no doubt about it. We need to increase our staffing level. I think it's that important. I think we need to try to figure out how we're going to do that. And everybody came together, but the important message is we can't do it alone. When they say it takes a village, it takes a city. It takes everyone from every neighborhood to be the eyes and ears of what's going on in their neighborhood to alert the police. You can't just think, oh, the other guy will do it. You have to step up to the plate. It's everybody's responsibility in this city to make it a safe place. I don't know what's going on in the acre while I'm in Pawtucketville or vice versa. We need you to be the watchdog in your respective area. We do absolutely need it. I think that we have a police department second to none. I'm very impressed by the fact that they were right on board to capture 2 alleged perpetrators. That's amazing to think. But there's a lot more work to do. I know they know that, and they're doing everything that they can. But I think we've cut short on our staffing level to a critical point where I think we need to step it up and be on board. I would be willing to ask the question if we could possibly do that. Could we have young recruits come in here at a lower level of pay to, at the minimum? I'm sure they'd want to. Some plan, if you talk to Brian Martin, something, if we put our heads together, we can figure something out. We have to do that. We can't just say, oh, these incidents happened and we're going to be on top of it. We constantly have to be on top of it all the time. And that's where I sit with this. But it was an excellent meeting. I commend the subcommittee and everybody that showed up. I must say that District Attorney Jerry Leone, whenever the call goes out, he's always here. I admire that. He's very, diligent and tenacious, and he's here, and he's concerned. And so we have to stick together, and there's strength in numbers. And the neighborhood groups that all came out today, we might not have crime in South Lowell, but we have to be on board with the areas that do have the crime. It's everybody's problem here, not just the Acres problem. It's everybody's problem here. So that's where I stand with that. And this is a big issue. This is a campaign issue. What I mean is this is a campaign to public safety is our goal. We gotta, go after those thugs. You know what I'm saying? It's a mission. We have to be on this mission.
Thank you, Councilor Mercia. Anyone else? Councilor Elliott.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. I meant to ask this question at the subcommittee, but it was so packed with so many other questions. But at one point in time, I believe it was in 1993, the city adopted a curfew. And I know there was some legal challenges to that, but number one, I want to ask the chief, does it make sense? But before I did that, I needed to ask the city solicitor, is that ordinance still in place? Can we still enforce it, or was it challenged in a court of law, or what is the status of that?
It was actually, I believe, challenged in part by a Lowell District Court judge who opposed it, and it went, I believe, as far as the SJC, and it's possible we can revisit it in certain ways, but we can certainly provide you with a full report on that issue for next week.
Okay, so do we still have the ability to?
I don't believe so, no.
No, okay, we don't. Okay, could you? I don't want to give any more extra work, but I think that would make sense, because I happen to think that a curfew does have some level of effectiveness, as we sat and listened to all of the different approaches, all of the different agencies, all of the different angles that the police department and the DA and the state, the feds, all the law enforcement agencies are using to address the youth violence. And I think, personally, I think that makes sense. But if we can't enforce it, then we can't. So that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the work of the subcommittee, the manager, and Chief LaValle, and so many others on this. But, there have been a series of incidents that are troubling to people. I mean, even I think people that feel safe themselves certainly recognize there's a problem in certain places, and it's not just limited to neighborhoods where there's been trouble. We've seen some incidents in the downtown. We've seen things on the edge of the downtown. And I think what it calls for is just more police work. And I think certainly the police have responded admirably to these recent incidents. But people want to see more police. They want to see, and as laudable as it is to have more, until we do have more, I think we got to be smarter about how we deploy the forces we have. And so I think that, you know, I get the call I got from the reporter about the manager's initiative, I think is a good way to respond quickly. So I talked to two, prominent business people with major business operations in the downtown who are concerned, concerned for their employees, and concerned for the city. And they would like to see just more police walk in the streets. So I think there are two things. There's prevention, which we get, I think, with just good old-fashioned police work, motor vehicle stops, people that look suspicious. That's how we get a lot of guns off the street that way. And then the policeman or woman walking the beat, walking up and down. People take a great sense of comfort in that, seeing that presence there. And so if we can take at least some money to dedicate to those types of details and see what happens. I mean, we did have a lot of success in the early 90s when things, and I'm not suggesting we're back in those days, but there were serious problems that were addressed by more police resources. So, this has been done. It's been done successfully. There are things that we had in the 90s that we don't have today. We had, a rapidly growing economy here. We don't have that. So you see more desperation, I think, in people. Frankly, we had more people in jail than ever before in the 1990s, and we had more federal dollars committed to police than we've ever seen before. So we have almost the opposite of those three things right now. But I know the council's committed. This meeting tonight was a good indication of the council's commitment and the other elected leaders' commitment, elected and appointed officials here in the city. So, and I think the manager's proposal is a good first step. So I just had those are my thoughts on this. But Mr. Manager, we expect to see that transfer next week. Is that the plan?
Mr. Manager?
I expect to, with the certification of the free cash, I expect to come in next week with the transfers of that into the overtime budget and the other use of that money. I would note that the overtime is a quick response to put money out there that the police department can use. They've come up with a good plan for it, and it's really tied to this grant that they recently received, the $300,000 in smart policing, that it makes more sense to be able to. One of the benefits of this the ComStat program we use and the use of our crime analysis work is that we know, obviously not exactly, but we have information that can tell us where we need to deploy people, when we need to deploy people, and that using the money in the way we've designed gives us that flexibility. That's the smart policing approach that the city actually is one of the leaders nationally. We've both Artie Ryan and Superintendent LaValle have spoken on this nationally, and so that was the thought process. It represents about a 35% increase in the overtime budget. That $100,000 for the remaining 6 months of this year, and then we're working on strategies with the Congressman's office as well as with the delegation on additional resources that we can bring to bear. Obviously, we need to see what's going to happen with other aspects of our financial picture, with state aid likely being cut by several $1 million. But this is money that we can put out there right now and use it in a way that's the most effective for the city, and that's the thought process. But it will be next week that I'll be coming in with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dakota, then Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to highlight that several people mentioned at the meeting the need for the residents at home to be vigilant, to pay attention, to see if there's strange activity happening in their neighborhoods, to make sure that they're making the phone call, to be proactive, knowing who their neighbors are, being a positive voice when they see that the police are taking care of something. Let their neighbors know that the police are doing a good job. So to be the eyes, the ears, and the voice to assist the police department. The police doesn't necessarily just want to get a phone call when a crime has been committed, but when there is the potential of a crime or just something suspicious. So to the public, please pay attention to your neighborhood and assist the police in their efforts that will help us as we deal with this fiscal crisis until we can put more police officers in the streets.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. we spent a good hour creating a dialogue between the district attorney, the chief, and Brian Martin, and the state representatives, and the senator, and so forth. And if we had a meeting for 2 hours, I don't think we would have, I think we accomplished our goal, but I think we had it 2 hours, we would have used the 2 hours. And many people had a chance to speak, but at 6:25, I just said, we have to adjourn now. And Vezina Noon didn't have a chance to speak, and he would like to speak, and I told him he could come back when this report is given to offer his comments, and if the council allows, I'll let Vezina Noon.
Motion by Councilman Donson, second by Councilor Mercia, that we suspend the rules in order to invite Vezina Noon to the podium. All those in favor of suspension, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you, Vezina, for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, Chairman of the Public Subcommittee meeting, Mr. Council Bud Caulfield, and all the council. It was a wonderful meeting tonight, and you did a fantastic job in chairing this meeting. All players was at the table. As usual, you cannot find a better DA in the state than DA Leone. I worked with him many years, and he's a wonderful guy. We are here earlier, 2 hours ago, because of the New Year shooting that killed Karina Urs and injured 7 others. When something like this happens, you know, we shake our head and wonder how can this senseless death occur or happen in our city? You know, there's no answers to that, basically. You know, we try. We came to the meeting tonight, and we hope to work together on that. And as community members and representative of the Cambodian community, we want these violent acts to stop because we are tired of this recurring time and again. This shooting reminds me of a double homicide here in Lowell in 2004. You know, a drive-by shooting that claimed the life of 2 teenagers. And after that homicide, the city, under at the time Manager Koch, has convened a 3-day gang summit at MCC. And again, all players was at the table, the communities, the faith-based group, the youth program, and so on and so forth. And later, the city authored a report. In that report, there's at least a dozen of recommendations. The recommendation called for, as DA Leone spoke earlier, about the front end and the back end approach in dealing with youth violence in our city. The back end, we did a good job enforcing it. The police department, the DA office. The front end, the youth program, the after-school program. Unfortunately, there's some of these recommendations that had yet been put into action. After-school program. I'm here to ask, through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Managers, and all the council, to open school after hours, particularly the Stoklesa on Broadway and the Morris School, for after-school program, touring, recreational. That way you know where this kid is at, where they hang out. That way you can build a relationship with the community. You bring program to where they at. It's nice. UTEC have done a fantastic job at the downtown, but let's try those 2 schools. Let's see. It's not a whole lot of money. You don't need to put a lot of money in it. It's just a matter of willingness to try it. Open it after hours. I'd be more than happy to talk about how we can get staffing there. I have some idea. I know that I won't be able to bore you right now, but I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair of the Public Subcommittee, and all the council for come together and address these issues so that this kind of senseless act stop at our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesna. Thank you for getting involved. I know Mr. Goldman, while we're in the suspension, can I recognize Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Manager, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm going to come at this in a couple of ways. I lived in the Lower Highlands for the first 20 years of my life, so I'm very familiar with that area. And I had my father's brother and his family lived on Grand Street, 37 Grand Street, for most of that time. So I'm very familiar with what that neighborhood is about, as I am in the Upper Highlands where I've lived the rest of my life. And back in 1995, the city received a grant called Weed and Seed Grant, where you weed out crime, seed a community. And that was in the Lower Highlands, and I was on it. And it was going to go into Centerville, but unfortunately federal grants no longer sufficed. They were cut. So what I would hope to do is to have Mr. Martin see if the Congresswoman, Nikki Tongas, could try to get that back into a federal budget. It was out of the Justice Department. And maybe we could do a weed and seed program again. If not through the federal government, maybe through the state government. Maybe our state legislative delegation can get the governor to put in some money in his public safety budget for a weed and seed grant, because we definitely need it. There are too many weapons, guns around. The police have been confiscating them in roadblocks. We still have about 30-something guns, including 2 automatics, semi-automatics, out somewhere, and ammunition. No one should have this. No one should be allowed to do this. I mean, the gun laws, unfortunately, are not strict enough. And my father was a police officer for 30-plus years. So I know, and he'll be aghast. He always once said, you must protect families, yes. You must have what? A gun. But no more than you need. Gun collectors, they need to put them in some sort of a safe case and not let anyone know about it. If they're going to be hunting, fine. But the laws are not strict enough. And unfortunately, there's too much money being put into campaigns to make sure that these laws are not are stricken from the books. So I urge the council, through the mayor and through the manager, to see if we can get either, if not through the federal government, at least through the state, some sort of weed and seed programs back into the communities. Because every community, every neighborhood needs it. And particularly with the crime watch neighborhoods, they really do need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. We have heard the report. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress, including sending the letter. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I apologize.
I did want to thank Mark and Vesna for speaking, in particularly for Vesna putting this into a kind of larger context, because although going to the neighborhood groups, you do hear quite a bit that people want to see more police officers walking the beat, but at the same time, the large problem, the problem is much larger than that, and that I would suggest that we use the same data that the police force gathers on where we're going to deploy those targeted resources to find ways that we might be able to operate something along the lines of what Vesna suggested. That if you have, pockets in Centerville and in the Acre and in the Lower Highlands that are experiencing upticks in crime, that we find some central locations there to have, targeted programs for the youth in those neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Again, motion to accept the report as a report of progress along with the Subcommittee's vote to request a meeting with Governor Patrick and others. Again, motion by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Dakota as members of the subcommittee. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, the vote. Good report, and it was a very, very good meeting. Thank you. Any other subcommittee reports this evening? Hearing none, moving on to the petitions. We have two personal injury claims and two property damage claims. Refer to the Law Department by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, the vote. Moving on to the motion section, we have, I believe, 8 or 9 motions this evening. The first motion by Councilor Murphy. Motion, City Council requests the city manager and the city solicitor report on the potential of residential property tax abatement program for the renovation of abandoned or blighted properties in targeted areas. Second by Councilor Dakota. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first motion was sparked in part by discussion we had late last year, about the receivership program for, foreclosed and abandoned properties, and also by some issues that Councilor Elliott had brought up in the article about residency for city workers, in some of the work that I've been doing on TIF agreements, the tax increment financing. The idea is to apply that same kind of principle to these particular properties, to really focus the program on those properties that need it in targeted areas. I know, on the agenda here it doesn't read fully, but the last part of it really is to focus a program like this in targeted areas where it makes the most sense, where investment wouldn't happen but for the particular incentive that may or may not be put in place. But the idea is to have some kinds of plans worked out that would be strictly for owner-occupied housing, and much shorter agreement, I think, than what is allowed under the tax increment financing for larger businesses, to have that property tax abatement in a way that gradually works up to full payment of the taxes owed for that particular property. So this is really to get an idea of sort of what changes might need to take place in order for this to be put into effect, whether or not we need some enabling legislation from the state in order to follow through on this. There was legislation that the governor had put through last year, the Housing Development Incentive Program, but that seemed to be geared more towards really developers and larger projects than just the single family or the duplex or 3 or 4 family home. So it's just really to get a report back on the feasibility of it, and then to get a better sense of where we go from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to the vote. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. City Council requests the city manager and the CFO to provide the City Council with the annual report referenced in the city investment policy and analysis of potential percentage preference for local community banks and credit unions. Seconded by Councilor Mercier. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. I just want to be clear from the outset that this is really not a suggestion that we go with banks just because of their community involvement. My notion of charity is such that it's not ever done with kind of an expectation of a return on investment, but it is to look at whether it makes sense economically, because I think there is an economic argument here that in the same way we looked at procurement policy last year, and really it's been done, particularly in Arizona, I think, there has been research done that shows you have really a 3% return on the money that's circulated because of spending on local products rather than from national chains. And in the same way, I think, by investing our resources in local community banks and credit unions, you, in effect, create a greater multiplier effect of where that money goes and what can be achieved because of it. A lot of times the local community banks and credit unions have a far greater percentage of the business that they do in providing capital for small businesses. And this is what really the problem is now for small businesses trying to expand. It's not necessarily that the taxes are too high, although they'll probably tell you that. It's the access to capital to be able to expand their operations. And so the more that you can devote to local banks and community credit unions, I think the higher you'll see a return back here in the community, even though you may not get quite as high a percentage. Now, there may be, and part of the motion is asking for this information, there may be legal barriers. There may be problems with whether or not you can have a certain amount insured. There may be logistical barriers to particular banks being able to take on as much responsibility, whether it's payroll and that type of thing. But I think as a policy, it makes sense to look at. What can actually be quantified is the amount of business that a local bank does contribute in providing capital. So it's not necessarily that you're going to give a percentage preference for a bank just because it happens to be located here in Lowell, but perhaps because they do X percentage, 40% of their lending is for small businesses and not the speculative kind of business that's done by many of the major national banks, Bank of America and that sort of thing. So I think there is a way to work out the numbers if these other potential barriers are looked at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Caulfield, on the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm a firm believer of if you live in a city, you do business in a city, and this is a good motion that Councilor Murphy brought forward. And whenever we have an issue, a fundraiser, an event, a catastrophe, who is always there first is the local bankers. Enterprise, Gen Doc Credit Union, Eastern Bank, Lowell 5, Washington Savings, Lowell Cooperative Bank, Sovereign Bank, they all fund the LDFC or have money in, I don't know that much about it, Mr. Mayor, but they all are part of that system. And during I think it was 2008 or 9, when we couldn't come up with the funds to furnish the fireworks, the CEO of Lowell Cooperative Bank approached me and he said, you know what, we're a small bank, but this is what our democracy is built on, the 4th of July, we can't let that go by. And they came forward, and because they came forward, everyone came forward. It's the banking institutions in this city are absolutely second to none. They pay taxes, and Enterprise Bank and Gen Doc Credit Union, Mr. Mayor, they fund those ROTC kids to go out and shovel the snow on sidewalks. I don't know how many times Eastern Bank has come forward to help with the swimming pools. The low 5-cent savings. I can go on and on and on. And I'm a firm believer, if you live in a community, you do business in that community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, since Councilor Murphy wants a report on percentages, whatever he's talking about, which I'm not a banker, so I find it hard to understand, but having tied in with that report, I'd just like to ask this. I know a transaction took place whereby, A, do we want the biggest bang for our buck with a bank in Tucson, Arizona, or wherever that is, or do we want a local, patronize a local bank, no matter which one it is? I don't know. So I'm only asking that a report be brought forward, not by the city manager, because I don't think he did it, but the chief financial officer, if that's you, Tom, to justify what transpired recently with money being taken out of a local bank, brought somewhere else. Is it the percentage that you did? What, you're not getting me it?
There's we can get you information, but there's some misinformation out there that we made a transfer of money recently. We didn't do any transfers of money recently. I know I heard that spoken of on that morning television show, that we did this in the last few weeks. We haven't moved money.
Well, I don't know if it was the
around.
morning television show, but wasn't it
No,
the
I
bank
heard
itself?
it was there.
Wasn't it the bank itself that said we're only down from the city's money to 300 and something thousand?
There's been 300 some odd thousand there for several months or maybe even longer.
So there's no issue. There's
it
no
wasn't
issue.
done in the last. It wasn't done. They didn't do this. The bank didn't make this decision because of something that happened within the last couple of weeks or a month. This is something that balance has been at that level for months now, as I say, if not longer.
So why did we get this big hullabaloo of a
I don't
editorial and this, that, and the other?
I
I'm
don't
only
know.
asking to
Yeah,
try to get
I
an
don't.
answer.
I don't know. They made the decision, but it had nothing to do with a recent change.
Now, was that morning show Good Morning America we're talking about? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. Mr. Manager or Mr. Moses, or maybe the solicitor, I would like to know, maybe as part of the report, what are the requirements, bid requirements for certain services that we go out? I'm going to presume, and I shouldn't presume, but certain banking services, or if not all, including investment, there are state requirements that we go out for bidding processes.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is
correct. Can you elaborate now for the people that are watching? I mean, it can be part of the report or included in the report, but I would like to know. It was always my understanding that you have to go out for bid. Is it every year? I know I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm sorry, but maybe you can all roll it into your answer.
It's all right. That document, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bid, but it can be an RFP. So you're not restricted only to low price, but you can have several criteria in there. Typically, almost every community says if you're going to do business with a bank, it has to have a branch that's convenient. And normally you rank that, like, for example, if all the deposits are coming from City Hall, you would rank very highly a bank that has a branch within a quarter mile of City Hall, less likely, less advantageous somebody who has one within a mile. And if there isn't one in the city limits, then they don't qualify. The city requires a number of services. The most important thing in the RFP is that a bank can provide the services that we need. Our payroll and accounts payable is quite a high volume. Any bank needs to be able to accommodate that. In addition, our cash flow fluctuates, as you know, quarterly. A smaller bank often cannot accommodate the entire needs of the city because of that fluctuation in cash flow. They have to manage their own balance sheets, and if they have an influx of $20 and $25 million all in the matter of several days, and then in a month that money is gone, they have real difficulty managing their own balance sheets. So we need banks of a certain size that can accommodate our fluctuations and balances. But all that gets into a request for proposals. That's a public document, and when we go out to bid, I will gladly make that document available to the city council.
How often, can I follow up, Mayor? How often is that RFP sent out? Is
It's
it annually?
usually every 3 years. There's such a high cost, both in terms of the city and in terms of the bank, in moving account structures as complex as we have, that going out every year would drive up your costs incredibly. So it's really got to be 3 years.
I understood. The city's a $300 million budget. I'm going to presume that it's just not one banking institution that is providing all the services of either simple cash flow, investment, things of that nature. How is that determined? Are there separate RFPs for separate functions or pots of money, if you will?
You know, when we have excess funds to invest, and we have many restrictions, we usually look for the best rate. Of course, if the best rate is a local bank, we'd love to do business with a local bank.
Okay. Just another aside. The pension system is another whole fund. How?
The pension system, number one, is a separate entity from the city, but the vast majority of the assets are with the state by law. Okay. They're at the pension reserve at the state, so we don't have any local control over those investments.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Martin, then Councilor Madonta, then Councilor Murphy again. Councilor Martin.
Yeah, it may not be responsive to the motion, but I think Councilor Elliott raised a good point. I mean, there are some requirements on city investments, probably some restrictions where we need to get the best rate or price. Some of those things are discretionary, and I think that's really what we're trying to understand. You know, there's some discussion about this, obviously, and so we should know how those decisions are arrived at, whether they occurred, you know, even if they didn't occur just this month, if there was a change in direction 6 months ago, or really if this is the course you've been following all along, you know, it would just be helpful to know that.
And I would like to refer the council to the investment policy that was part of the budget. The primary principles that we adhere to, which is pretty much uniform throughout the Commonwealth, is the SLY concept: safety, liquidity, yield. Safety first, liquidity second, yield last. Safety meaning we regularly get bank rating publications, and we will only invest our funds with the highest rated banks, because I think everybody remembers some banking debacles in the 1970s, 80s. Liquidity, we have to be able to have access to those funds on a daily basis. And then once we're assured that the taxpayers, the citizens' money is safe, it's liquid, then we go for the highest yield.
Councilor Madonta.
Just to follow up on the issue that Councilor Elliott brought up, you said we have an RFP process that we go through, and it usually happens once every 3 years. So my question is, where are we in that cycle?
We're actually coming up to it, putting it out within the next few months.
Yeah, so we haven't moved anything as a result of it. We're actually going through an RFP process.
Correct.
As a result of that, funds may move.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to further clarify, not looking for any special treatment because of, you know, goodwill. I think that the local community banks and credit unions do provide a greater function in that they provide that access to capital that some of the larger national banks don't do necessarily. And so this is really to get an analysis from you back as to whether or not it makes sense to include that, you know, in the bidding process, if you come within 5 to 10% of a particular bid, but you have you exceed a percent of the amount of business you do in terms of providing capital to local businesses here, that whether or not that could be amendment to the investment policy that you've just referenced.
We can look at that. That becomes difficult to implement because a local bank is going to do virtually 100% of their business within the community, and a statewide bank or a national bank is going to do a very, very, very small amount on a percentage basis. Determining on a nominal dollar basis may be very difficult. It may be impossible to get that data.
The point being that you may lose out in sort of on the very margins of it, but in terms of what gets, you know, pumped back into the local economy, that you will see a far greater return. But I look forward to the analysis.
One thing I caution as well is in this modern day and age, it may not be as simple as you may think. A local bank or a national bank may say, we originate a certain amount of loans within the city, and they get repackaged and sold on the secondary market, and really it's impossible to know who really owns those loans. Even local banks do a lot of that. So it becomes a very difficult exercise. I'll certainly give you the best report I can on this. I'll also see how practical it is to get some of this information from banks that may be, let's say, cooperatively owned, like a credit union, or a publicly owned bank. There are different willingness to disclose some of this information too. But I'll do the best I can.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, motion to, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to be recorded as present, if I could. Mr. Clerk, thank you. Chair recognizes Council Caulfield.
Mr. Mayor, I thank you very much. I will ask my colleagues if I could take out of order. There's a motion that I filed, Mr. Wayne Trombley to address council, and the man has been sitting here very patiently. Yep. And I'm just wondering if he could come forward.
Motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Elliott, that we suspend the rules and move
Thank you.
Motion number 19 next on the agenda. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Let me just read the motion by Councilor Caulfield. Motion, request the City Council allow Wayne Trombley to address their body relative to providing 1,000 volunteers for one day in October to help clean city neighborhoods, as well as assisting in other tasks. Second by Councilor Elliott. Mr.
Thank you.
Trombley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes.
I'm a member of the YMCA, and Ray Adams, the executive director, told me about this wonderful program led by this wonderful person, that one day in October, on a Saturday, they will bring in 1,000 volunteers, ages between 12 and 20, and for every 5 volunteers, there'll be an adult overseeing their work. And it's just not for the city of Lowell. It could be for nonprofits. It could be cleaning the parks, going into a neighborhood and addressing neighborhood needs. And Mr. Trombley's going to explain the program, and he does have a flyer to hand out to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, for moving me ahead in the agenda, and Councilor Caulfield for your support in our efforts. If I could pass out an information packet. It requires a partnership of nonprofits, city government, and churches and businesses and individuals to bring this size of an event to a city. And I'm here tonight to explain who those partnerships are and the finances behind it and some of the liability behind it, and answer any of your questions that you may have. First, let me explain my role. I am the community director. So I will be putting together and have been in the process of putting together a leadership team to support this event. A little bit about my background. I live at 8 Otter Lane in Groton, Massachusetts, and I'm a youth ministry leader. And I have been leading, over the last 6 years, mission trips to other cities where we have brought teenagers and adult leaders to do service work in other cities. We have gone to Reading, Pennsylvania, to Machias, Maine, to Keansburg, New Jersey, to Scranton, Pennsylvania. And every year that I come back from doing those events, I get asked, why don't you do something locally? And that has led me to be here tonight. I have been talking to Councilor Caulfield, to Ray Adams at the YMCA here in Lowell, and I've been talking to a national organization called Group Work Camps, and they have a program called One by Youth, where they bring 1,000 volunteers to a city for one day of service. And the day that we've chosen and the city that we would like to do it in is the city of Lowell on October 15th, 2011. So as I mentioned, it requires partnerships to do this. And so on your second page of your information package, I'd just like to go through who the players are and who these partnerships are. First of all, you need to have a charitable organization so that people can donate money and get a tax deduction for it. And so I've gone to my church, Shepherd of the Valley Lutheran Church in Groton, Massachusetts, and the pastor and the council there on November 8th of 2010 voted in favor of being the charitable organization to accept donations for this event. Next, I flew out to Colorado and visited with the One by Youth organization. I've seen their operation. I've worked with this group in the past. They are a national and international nonprofit organization that has been running mission trips, work camps for the last 30 years. They are also a publisher of Group Magazine. If you're involved with youth ministry, they're the premier youth ministry magazine in the country. They will bring the 1,000 volunteers to the city. They have the contacts to the local churches, faith-based organizations within 150 miles of the city of Lowell. They have a website, they have as a magazine, they will publish it, advertise it, they will get the volunteers to come. All the volunteers that come will come with leaders. There will be teenagers, as City Councilor Caulfield said, there'll be for every 5 teenagers, there'll be an adult with them from some faith-based organization. So it's not people just coming into the city that we don't know about. One by Youth will be carrying any liability umbrella insurances that are required from the city. Like anything else, I will work with the city. If we choose a venue and you need to have a certificate of insurance, I will work with One by Youth to put a rider on their umbrella policy that covers the city of Lowell. Businesses and individuals and nonprofits will be asking for donations and in-kind donations and volunteers. So basically, we are going to solicit input on projects that can be done. It could be as simple as cleaning a park of litter, which would require no money, or building a wheelchair ramp for some person in need that needs assistance. So we will be working with those. And then we come to the last part, and that's the City of Lowell. You know it requires credibility and it requires support from the City of Lowell. And that's why I'm here today, to inform you that we'd like to do this and to ask for your endorsement, your support in bringing this 1,000 volunteers to this city in 2011. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to refer this motion to the manager. Let the manager outline any projects that nonprofits or the city might have. And we definitely have to have a definite, Mr. Trombley, some figure that we have to, you're saying we might have to come up with in-kind donations or whatever it might be?
Well, one of my roles will be to go out and get donations. So
not only would you supply the workers and volunteers, but you're going to supply the necessary funding? Or?
That would be correct.
Okay.
So it's not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's going to be in the thousands to 10,000, range. It doesn't require any money to clean a park, okay? But we do want to raise money so that we can do some meaningful projects also.
Could you please leave your phone number and so forth so Manager Lynch could get in touch with, or his staff?
Yes.
And you could have set up a meeting, whatever. And I personally want to thank you coming here from Groton, Mass, to come into our city and say we want to help. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Twombly's email address, so we'll be in touch.
You have it? Okay.
Thank you.
Great. I would entertain a substitute motion then to refer this to the city manager for progress by Councilor Dakota, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor of the substitute motion signify by saying aye. Opposed is to vote.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience. Getting back to the regular agenda, the next motion by Councilor Patrick Murphy. Motion, City Council requests the city manager to report on the cost benefits of expanded use of GIS and updated citizen request management system to improve efficiency and transparency of service delivery. Seconded by Councilor Dakota. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first part of it is really to get an idea of, because it can be used both for, I think, asset management, but also in terms of relationships with the citizens themselves. We had an issue brought up about notification earlier this evening, and there are programs that there are ways to use the geographical informational systems to, if a zoning change is happening in a particular area, that it will call up all the citizens and their addresses for notifications to be mailed out. Greensboro, North Carolina does quite a bit, it turns out, using this technology to be able to really cut down on the amount of work that departments have to devote to really answering questions from the public, where you can just go and call up all kinds of different information about what's going on in your particular neighborhood, or the kinds of the kinds of permitting issues that may arise, and the more that the website can really be used to lessen that workload, really the more time that departments have to devote to actually addressing some of the issues that come up. Earlier or late last year, there was an issue that came up over in Woburn Street where there was all kinds of lack of coordination between National Grid and ended up being kind of a multi-day problem because there was really no coordination in terms of what the work history had been. But this kind of technology can really, I think, for people working at City Hall, to be able to pull up that information in real time and figure out all the kinds of different work orders, whether it be on the sewer or water lines or natural gas lines and that sort of thing, so that you can become more efficient in actually addressing some of those problems. The second part of it, I was pleased to see earlier this morning, has largely been addressed, I guess, if you now go onto the city's website, you can enter in the kinds of requests that you want to make through the Citizen Request Service, or you can sign up to email alerts from the eGov system, so that you can now start to track the kinds of issues like traffic signs and sidewalk repair issues and that type of thing, and so that over time you're getting better and better at really addressing these kinds of everyday problems that come up. So perhaps we can have some kind of, there was quite a production on the parking meters. Perhaps we could have some kind of tutorial on how to go about using the system, so that people can, again, the more that we have people using the system, the better data we have in being able to continually improve our operations, but also the more transparency that citizens have in seeing how their work orders are being completed. So I applaud the city manager for getting that done so quickly. But I think that will make a big difference over the long term in how we do things here in the city.
Manager Lynch?
If I may, with regards to the GIS and the eGov system, I mean, the eGov has been something that we've had for about 3 years. Actually, I signed off on a report today that, but it was too late to put in your packet, obviously. So you'll be getting it next week on the new notification system that we have. What we've done is Councilor Murphy references the web page has been updated to put the eGov system and a notification system up at the top of the web page, so it's more visible to people. We've been Donna McIntosh in my office has been doing quite a bit of work with looking at ways that we can utilize social media and utilize our various systems more effectively, so that people can sign up for job postings. They can sign up for snow notifications, sign up for no school. Sign up for to know when something else is, some event has been planned. The eGov system has worked fairly well. It's not as robust as some of the other systems that we looked at, but it was much more inexpensive. But we're trying to make better use of that, and I think that ties in with what you had mentioned in your comments with regards to the motion here on the GIS. The GIS, we do have a robust GIS system, and I do think coming in with a sort of a showing people what they can do with that and what we do with it now would be very helpful. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that, and we will definitely follow through on this request.
Thank you. Anything else on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Before I read the next motion, could I just ask students in the audience where you're from, if you don't mind? UMass Lowell. Well, thank you for being here.
For a community psychology course.
Oh, terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Manager, be nice. Thank you. Next motion by Councilor Murphy, Motion, City Council requests the city manager to report on progress toward water conservation retrofit and rebate program to be implemented possibly in coordination with energy efficiency loan program and stretch code grants. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. This is the last motion, and it really, there was a notification in our packet today that addressed the energy efficiency grants and loans through the National Historic Park District, and as well as the Green Community Grants. This would be to really figure out whether or not, you know, it's obviously an issue of timing, I think, but if it could be coordinated with what was proposed in the water conservation plan, retrofits and rebates for things like, you know, low flow shower heads and that type of thing that reduce costs both for our water department, but also for residents themselves. If we could coordinate with those applying for energy efficiency grants, probably more on the residential side, I think it would be useful, given that they're interested in these types of issues in the first place, and they may be the ones that are most likely to partake in it. So if we could get a report on you know, a sort of timeline for the first, the water conservation retrofit and rebate program, whether or not we might need to reapply for some other state grant for the next round of state grants, but if we could coordinate with the energy efficiency as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Anything else on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion, which is filed jointly by Councilor Dakota and Councilor Elliott. Motion, City Council requests the city manager to put together a plan that will help give Lowellians greater access to city jobs.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Already been seconded, I know, but thank you.
Thank you.
When a motion is filed by two, it's already
Okay.
seconded. But thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
You know, they have my support.
That's right, exactly right. Councilor Dakota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So the issue of residency and Lowellians getting city jobs comes up a lot in various forms. And I wanted to make sure that we discussed it and found perhaps steps that address some of the concern for the residents and people in the media about making sure that Lowellians do have access to jobs. I asked Councilor Caulfield to, Elliott, excuse me, you got me all confused. To file this motion with me jointly, because I do think it's important that the greater we are, the farther apart we are on our ideals in some of these things, the more room there is for solutions. And we wanted to make sure that the residents know that we want to work together to find ways to address what our common issues are. And I think they are that most of us, and maybe all of us, believe that when city employees work in the city, it's better for the city economically. And that we all believe that there are great people in the city that could take these jobs if given the opportunity. And I believe, and I'm assuming most people believe, that we want well-run government by hardworking, committed staff. So with those three truths for me, I try to think of some ideas that we could maybe institute that get us closer to having more of our Lowell residents working in the government jobs. And the first one you've already addressed, which is the email program, giving people access to job openings through email. I have given, did you get one? I gave a copy of some of my some of the ideas that you can read. And I know for Councilor Murphy, he wants people to have access to government jobs, and there should be more representation in government that reflects the diversity of the city, and I think that that's important. And the one that I'm most interested in, I'll just read out loud, is the providing an equivalent training program for higher level jobs where a degree might be required, but where for some reason the person didn't pursue a degree, but they are able to have an equivalent program that they could take that would qualify them for a job. I think it's important that our management level people, particularly because Lowell is still a blue collar town, and blue collar people are hardworking people, and they often can become prepared for management level positions with a little bit of maybe management training or financial training. So that's the one I'm most interested in, but I'm going to let Councilor Elliott speak too.
No,
Thank you, Councilor.
sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilor Dakota really summed it up very well. I think she presented it very well. And what is the common ground? How can we make jobs available to the people in the city and let them know, we want people living in the city to get city jobs. At the same time, we want to make sure we get the best qualified candidate in the city, best person to hire. And thirdly, I think Councilor Murphy had a motion. It seems we're all working in somewhat of a roundabout way. How can we address the issues of putting people back to work in the city? How can we fill up the vacant properties, foreclosed properties? How can we get our economy stimulated? How can we get people downtown in a roundabout way? We're all addressing it in some form or manner, and this is just another way, another idea to do that. When we hire people, and I'm sure we'll be hiring other people from out of town, how do we get them to move to the city? Can we look at incentives? And maybe this is a little bit outside of the motion, but if there's no objection, like I said, the makers of the motion, can we look at that as well, Mr. Manager? I know a number of years ago, Council Martin, and I believe the initiative is still in place. We use federal grant money for a 2 for Lowell program. I supported it then. I think it has had tremendous success to look at our multifamily units and say to prospective investors or homeowners, if you buy a 2-family or 3-family, live there, and we want you to live there. You'll take care of the property rather than absentee landlords that just collect rents and they're elsewhere. That's an incentive. Can we use federal money to do something of a similar nature? I don't know, but it does make some sense. What can we do? Some ideas. Rather than not do anything, how can we approach some of the challenges, the problems, the issues that we have in the city now, and still at the same time address an issue? And we have a lot of jobs in the city. Pardon me. And when we look at 51% of people not living in the city, what can we do to get more of them back in the city? And I know there are some state laws with, I believe, with teachers. So we're not trying to break the law, but incentives work and mandates not. And perhaps we shouldn't be trying to tell people to move here. There are enough good reasons to come and locate in the city. And how do we do that? I did have one question. I know there was an editorial. Mr. Manager, can we find out of the 51% of 1383, how much that does translate into payroll? I mean, I know we can look at 80% of the budget is salaries, and we can look at that number. I'd be just curious to see, and of course, no names, but just a ballpark figure, what that would translate into dollars. So
yeah, I can see if we can do that.
Yeah.
The bulk of the people that live outside the city are in the school department. That number was percentage was a little was the total city
citywide,
payroll.
right?
On the and I believe I gave these numbers to Lyle a while back. In the non-school side, most of them, I believe, do live in the city. It's in the, I think it flips.
Okay.
53-47, I believe, on the non-school side, 47-53 on the school side, if I remember numbers, and I could be off a little bit on that. I happen to think this is a good motion. I've often said that given the choice, I'd certainly prefer to hire people from the city, if at all possible. Oftentimes it's a case that people don't apply from the city. When we put a job up and we have 47 applicants, and one of them lives in the city, That's not a high number. We do have there are a number of very qualified people that live here in the city that choose not to apply for positions here because they have positions outside of the city. Many times for municipalities, they work in neighboring communities. We have people that work in Tewksbury. I remember someone applied for a position recently that works in a municipal department over in Tewksbury. We've had people that work in other communities, and they choose to work there as opposed to apply here for whatever reason. But anything we can do, and certainly I think is an interesting idea is the idea of trying to do something. Obviously, we don't always pretty much when we have a college degree on the job description, it's college degree or equivalent experience. So we do leave ourselves open there, to get the best possible person. But far better to get someone with 10, 15 years of experience as opposed to someone that's just fresh out of college.
Well, I was thinking, excuse me if you'd let me, I was thinking in particular people who've been with the city for a while and maybe they need some management training. So if you could designate a course that they pay for and they do it on their own time, that makes them is equivalent to that.
Right. I was going to say what would be more. I was actually going to say that what's more useful, I think, is the idea of upward mobility within the workforce, using programs, and we can certainly work with employees if they're interested in going on that track. If we see potential there, trying to, and it actually might require some city resources. If we have, it's not unusual, certainly in the private sector, that you'll take a person that has you'll identify that they have particular skills and interest in moving up the organization, and you'll say, well, we want to send this person on. We want to give them more assignments. We want to train them. We want to send them for some programs. And there are union issues that get involved in there. There often are. But, I without giving a tremendous number of specifics, we have an individual that has really arisen over the last several months that we've been very impressed with in one of our departments. And we've been sending them out for some training programs, and they're coming back with some great ideas, and there's some real opportunities there for the city to move that person up the organization and for that person to see something that he probably wouldn't have seen if this hadn't come to our attention. So there are some opportunities there, and I think that we could do that as well as the incentives, look at some incentive programs. We do still have those programs for home ownership out there. We did a program a few years back with the hospitals that had some, that's still out there. The funding is an issue, but we're trying to get people from the hospitals and I believe the university to locate in the city. You may recall that one, that we're still looking at, we still need to look at that. Again, a lot of times it's resources, but the more people we can get to move into the city, the more people we can get to work for the city or move up in the city organization, the better. I agree with Councilor Elliott. I don't think there are enough reasons for people to move to the city of Lowell. We don't need to mandate anything like that. All we need to do is kind of work to put these systems in place. So I look forward to working with staff to put together a plan.
Thank you.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an excellent motion, well thought out and well presented. And we all know that out of the budget, whether it's the school department or the city side of government, 83% of that budget is salaries. And if a good portion of those people receiving those salaries lived here in Lowell, spent their money in Lowell, contributed to the economy of Lowell, we'll be much better off. Also, I believe there's a state law that prohibits the teachers, you have to make them live in it, but you can, as Councilor Elliott and Councilor Dakota indicated, there are initiatives you could bring forward to entice people to live in Lowell. And one other thing, when it comes to promotions, the people who are working here for years, they should be given a shot at a promotion. before anyone else is hired. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Motion, City Council requests the city manager to report on the parking restriction and enforcement thereof on Varnum Avenue in the vicinity of Lowell General Hospital. Second by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Elliott.
The motion speaks for itself, Mr. Manager. That's a very, very busy intersection, and there's just one little stretch there, and cars have parked there. I did receive a couple of calls on people almost afraid they're going to hit it. There are two cars that just park outside. I don't know if I've seen any signs or not. Maybe I haven't, but if we could just look into it. This is on...
Just so I understand, right on Varnum, this is to place a restriction on?
I don't believe
Okay.
there's a restriction now.
Okay. Do you have an approximate location, though, on?
The entrance right across the street from Varnum Avenue.
Okay.
I know that, if I could,
Yeah, yes, Councilor Mendonça.
that a few months ago, at the hospital's request,
We put a
we
restriction.
made no parking on their side of the street.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is
all
the...
day, but I believe Councilor Elliott's referring to across the street.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I am referring to across the street.
Okay.
That's correct, and there are no signs there. There's an apartment building, and they consistently park out there, and that is a dangerous thing, accident waiting to happen.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you consider Varnum Avenue a main thoroughfare? I would. So wouldn't you, don't we have an ordinance that says you can't park on a main thoroughfare from like November to April anyway?
Yeah, it's December 1st to March, the end of
Sure.
March, right?
So why are they parking there anyways? Aren't they violating the ordinance?
Isn't that just overnight?
It's a snow removal ordinance.
Right.
But it's in effect on main streets from, I thought it was December to April or
December
something.
1st to March 31st.
Okay, well, so why don't we just follow the rules and,
Well, I'm not talking about a snow
The
emergency. I'm
ordinance on
talking
the-
about
Right, you're talking about it.
regularly. It's a very, very busy intersection, and a lot of vehicles come right out of Lowell General Hospital and take a left, and these vehicles park right, almost
Right.
directly across.
I'll have the traffic engineer.
but until we
Okay,
have a
thank you.
plan, we have something in place already, right?
I think it's specified, I think the streets are specified, though, in the ordinance, I believe. But
Well, if
I'll
Varnum
go back
Avenue
and
isn't
check.
one of them, then that's bizarre.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Motion, request report on staffing levels in police department. Second by Councilor Mendonça.
I think that question has already been answered at the public safety meeting, and we do have the report, so.
Okay.
And I'll follow up with a
Okay.
more detailed report.
All those in favor of the motion
Thank you.
signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Thank you. The last motion of the evening by Councilor Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager to contact National Grid and request they place a street light on pole number 2 in the vicinity of 27 to 35 Glenmere Street. Second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did receive a call from one of the neighbors who was representing a whole slew of people on that street, telling me that it's relatively dark there, and they were afraid, and they wanted to know if the city manager could put the light there.
I'll go out tonight.
So can you do it? So we'll get a ladder and a boom, and we'll put you up there. But it did require a motion. I'm presenting the motion. I know that funds are tight. I know, again, I'm asking you to raise the level of money, but,
It's all right.
I wish that we could do something. It's between 35 and 27. It's directly across the street from 36, and it is pole number 2. I took a look at it, so thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Mendonça.
Not directly related to the motion, but I know that we had the initiative that we were going to purchase the street lighting, and maybe not answer tonight, I don't know, but where are we with that?
You want to, Tom will.
The ball is still in National Grid's court. However, they have represented it to us that it's their delay, and they will hold us harmless for their delay. So any amounts that we're paying under the old agreement now will be refunded to us once the purchase is complete.
I thank the chair for the
Thank you.
indulgence.
And if I may, the other part of that Tom didn't mention was that the actual cost of acquiring the streetlights was substantially less than the number that we were originally working off of, that the consultant that we brought on to work on this did an excellent job for us in negotiating that price down. So we saved a considerable sum of money there.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Anything else to come before the council? I want to thank the students from UMass Lowell for being here. Thank you. Motion to adjourn by Council Mercia, seconded by Councilman Donta. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Good night.